you know, we really owe Debbie some gratitude because she would be surfing in Florida right now if it was not for this thing today. They postponed her and Tom postponed their Florida vacation. Well, vacation, what would you call it? Pilgrimage. Okay, moving there for the winter, several days, so she could be here today. And this is part of our, I'm calling it our Homegrown Hometown Business Series, where we're learning about some of the, especially multi-generational businesses in Verona that we've had here, so we can get to know. And you brought some fans too, so thank you all for coming. Do you want to stand, or what would you prefer? I've noticed this thing peaks out if you talk too much into it. Yeah. I got it.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm told I have a soft voice, so I thought I should use this. Besides, I have hearing aids, and we have these things in the floor, so if you have hearing aids, turn them on. My name is Debbie Bass. This is my family over here. My sister Jean, who is also a Bass because she married Tom's brother John. And I'll introduce them. This is my husband Tom is in the blue shirt, and my son John is behind him. My son Greg is next to him, his wife Colleen, and my niece Bailey, who's Jean's granddaughter, and Amy is her mother. Amy's my niece. David Kilps is my brother-in-law. He's married to Tom's sister, Christine, and that's Carrie Bass, who is John's wife. And they all work at Park Printing except for David, who just retired from WPS, so he's probably happy not to be working. My mom and dad were Margin Wib Dudley. His name was really Wilbur, but his little brother couldn't say Wilbur, so he called him Wibber. And so Wib became his name for the rest of his life. I have a picture of, well, that's a different picture. I have a picture of my mom and dad.
Oh, here, you try to use the thing. Or do you want me to use the thing?
Yeah.
Just that big button there goes forward and then move backwards. I'll stick some tape to them so they're easier to see.
Okay.
There you go, that thing right there. I'll put this tape on it so.
My mom and dad is on the left. I could not find a picture of both of them together. I have, one or the other. This picture was taken at Greg and Colleen's wedding, which was in 1982. So they're fairly elderly by now. This other picture is of the four of us shortly after we built our building here on Legion Street. I can't remember when that was taken. Park Printing started life as a financial advertising company named Hamilton James and Associates. I don't know where they got the name, but I think Hamilton came from Alexander Hamilton. These are what we sold. They're called statement stuffers. We sold in the banks all over the country. My dad was an advertising writer, and he was a really good writer. The only reason I have this left is it was in my son's baby book, because that's our first son. It says, "What will it cost to put this little boy through college?" Let me see. Yeah, and with a little squib inside, and then on the back it says, "Your imprint here," and it was for Hamilton James and Associates. We started that. They started that in 1952 at our house. My dad and mother had lived in Chicago when they first got married in 1928. He worked in an advertising agency, and they moved to Madison in 1940, and we lived there. He worked in an advertising agency. And in 1952, they decided they would like to start this business. And then shortly after that, I went away to college, but Jean tells me she remembers having all these little statement stuffers in piles around my bed, and they would walk around the bed collecting them and put them in an envelope and send them off to banks. And then we'd get they'd get orders for them. And we didn't have a printing press then. We had them printed at a local company and imprinted at a local company. Over the next few years, we eventually moved out of our house into 3 different rental offices in Madison. In the meantime, I graduated from Beloit College, married Tom in 1958. We moved out of the state while Tom worked at television stations in Indiana, North Carolina, and Rhode Island for the next 12 years. Jean married Tom's brother John in 1962, and after they both graduated from the UW, they joined Hamilton James, and John started buying equipment. Jean tells me their first piece of equipment was a folder. We didn't print these things, but John figured we could fold them. In 1962, Mom and Dad decided it was time to move out of Madison. They picked a place that was within 15-minute drive from their house in Madison and bought some land on Range Trail in Verona and built a house there. They still had their place of business on Avon Road off the Beltline in Madison, which is now the Pertzburn Company, I think. But in 1968, they bought a piece of land on the first industrial park established in Verona, which is a picture here of my dad being identified as William Dudley, buying the first piece of land. At that time, we changed our name from Hamilton James to Park Printing House because we were already printing and not doing so many bank statements anymore. We changed it to Park Printing because we were in the industrial park. The building plans for Park Printing were provided by the local lumber company. It was a simple rectangular building. And when Verona built the library on Harriet Street several years later, they used the same plan. Tom and I moved back to Wisconsin in December of 1971, and Tom became Park's first salesman. He was pretty successful because he likes helping people. And when people would ask our children about what their dad did, they would say, he drives around in his car and has coffee with people. I had 3 different jobs after we got back to Wisconsin. In 1974, Park Printing decided they could afford to hire me. So I took over my mom's job with the books, and she and my dad would then spend 6 months every winter on Sanibel Island in Florida and traveling to England. I think they went there like 16 or 17 times. John became the president of Park when my dad retired. Although my mom and dad were unofficially retired, they came to work every day if they were in town. And under John's care, we bought more and more machinery, and eventually the financial advertising part of Park Printing was phased out. We started doing more and more printing for Madison companies such as Nicolay Instruments, CUNA Mutual Insurance, State Farm, Wisconsin, American Family Insurance, and Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board. We built an addition onto the existing building on Legion Street. One eventful day, we even had a fire, which we have lots of film of, but no pictures. Nobody really got hurt, and the building wasn't damaged. Now that building is the home of Elysee Cosmetics on Legion Street. We added on to that building to made it like a U-shaped building. And in 1991, we moved into our present building on East Verona Avenue. This is putting on the addition onto the old building. And then we put this ad in the paper saying thank you to the people in Verona. We appreciate the fine performance and friendly cooperation of Verona area contractors, suppliers, and other businessmen. You've given us a very happy introduction to the Verona community. And that's our old building. There was a big tree in the front of that building which I don't even think was planted then. And then when we moved in, or bought the land and moved into our new building, the picture that we showed you first, this one, this is our whole family. And you notice my niece Amy is holding a sign that says 60th. This was supposed to be this was a 60th anniversary present for my mom and dad. They were married in 1928 on Christmas Day. And so we had this picture made of all of us and the children that we had then as their anniversary present. This was a wonderful move, especially for my mom and dad. Culmination of years of working toward the goal of establishing a business to hand down to their growing family. And we're happy that our mom and dad got to enjoy working in our new building. We moved in 1991, my dad died in 1992, and my mom died in 1999. But 40 years after starting their business, they were able to see this culmination of all their efforts and all their children and one grandchild working at Park Printing. One of my favorite memories of my dad was when he was visited by a representative of the Wisconsin Manufacturing Association who wanted Park to join. My dad asked him what they did, and the rep said one of their missions was to lower the tax rate for manufacturing businesses. My dad said, "No, thank you, I love paying taxes." I was so proud of him. In 2006, we added on to the existing building. I don't know if we have a picture of any of that. And then, not sure, but we changed our name from Park Printing House Limited to Park Printing Solutions. And we printed this little booklet while we were still on Regent Street I'll show it to you. You can look at the booklet it's here. So now our two boys, Greg and John, and Gina and John's son and daughter, Roger and Amy, have joined the business, as well as Greg's wife Colleen and John's wife Carrie and Greg and Colleen's son Trevor. John Bass was the president of Park when he passed away 10 years ago. Now our son Greg is the president. Other grandchildren have worked part-time over the summer vacations and a few nieces and nephews also, so it is truly a family business. We have 50 full-time employees, many of whom started right out of high school, and some of them are still with us. We also have a large group of part-time people whom we can call upon when we have big jobs that entail a lot of handwork. One of them is sitting over there. And a lot of our employees are Verona residents. Some other fun facts about Park Printing. Every month there's a party for those who have a birthday in that month. Sometimes John cooks brats and hamburgers, other times we serve pizza or Gina's lasagna. We have a Thanksgiving and Christmas party every year and a summer picnic. And this, on Halloween, we just had a chili making contest with several employees making a batch using their favorite recipe, and everyone votes for the best one, and that person gets a prize. Most employees wear a costume, and there's also a prize for the best costume. Now, when I worked at Park Printing, I didn't really know a lot of what we did, and I still don't. I retired almost 20 years ago. But Amy is here, and she's she took over my job doing the books. She knows what Park Printing does. I know we print buses. We print the stuff that can go on a bus. We print wallpaper, because we've got some of that in our building. So Amy can tell you what we do now. And I'm sort of put her on the spot by, oh, she's going to bring reinforcements.
Okay, so I am John and Jean Bass's daughter, and my brother Roger is an estimator at Park Printing now. I, like Debbie said, I am the financial officer and do a lot of purchasing. Greg is Tom and Debbie's son, and John is also their son. So, yeah, and it was Tom and John, brothers, Bass brothers, married Jean and Debbie, the Dudley daughters. So that's how it's all legal. It all works. So yeah, in 2008, we, after we added on, we purchased a large format printing company to enhance all of the other stuff that we can do. And that turned out to be a good move. And
we can print on anything other than glass. We have, obviously, the presses that we originally moved to our building with are still in operation, and so we print on paper too. But, my mom mentioned that we can print buses. It's, yeah, I mean, we print the material that goes and is applied to a bus or a car or a box truck or whatever. We can also print on walls. So what you see around here, we could print wallpaper for you. So, yeah, I mean, there really isn't anything we can't print on and apply it to. Well, there's many, many services that go beyond what the business originally started from, but this is not an advertisement, so.
Question. Can you print aluminum historical markers? Really?
Yes.
Make a note.
Our biggest client.
All right.
Aluminum historical markers.
Yes. As I'm sitting over there listening to my mom and listening to the stories, it just is amazing to me as I think back to my grandparents starting this, it was probably more so than today is you get to just, I'm going to do this, and you start doing it. You started an advertising agency. You don't hear that today. As we grew up through Park Printing, my cousin and I started out as the delivery drivers, and we were paid as one person. It doesn't take two people to do it, but we both rode in a truck, and my cousin would slow down enough so I could roll out, deliver the package, run and jump back into the truck, so we never stopped, so that was good. My brother Greg started as delivery driver, worked his way through the bindery, through the press room, and became a salesperson. Amy started out in a playpen, worked her way out of that, literally, and through pre-press, and like the rest of us, through the plant, and became, front office, bookkeeper, comptroller, whatever, financial officer. I worked, again, delivery drivers through the bindery, working second shift supervisor for a bit, customer service, then I became an estimator. We've certainly learned a lot from our parents and our grandparents and from each other. And I feel so privileged. I love coming to work every day. Love my job, as I'm sure we all do. And for a family business, with this many in the family, you could imagine there might have been this, but not so much. We get along great, and it's always fun to come to work every day. So.
We get along great because of my mom.
I just wanted to say, you know, Roger and Amy grew up at Park Printing in their playpens. I remember when Amy went to school, the principal would come and lift her over the fence after school so she could come to Park Printing.
I can explain that.
There's nothing wrong here.
Yeah. So I went to school at what is now Sugar Creek, but at the time it was just the elementary school. And they used to play softball in the summer, and they would put up a snow fence around the softball field. And so I guess my first day of school, coming home from school for Roger and I was always going to Park Printing, because that's where our parents and grandparents were, and we'd get a ride home from there. And so when I went to try to go home, there was a big fence in the way, and I didn't know what to do. And so Mr. Hyde, Don Hyde, was the principal back then, and he hoisted me over the fence so that I could get over there, because not many kids live in the industrial park, so.
And John and Roger used to take a wagon filled with paper pads that we made of extra paper to sell them around the neighborhoods.
And we sold our artwork door to door.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Things you wouldn't let your kids do these days.
So anyway, that's the story of Park Printing, and we're all a big happy family.
Your question? What's your biggest job you guys have ever done? Like, what's that one thing that's just the huge, that really?
That is really hard to put a finger on. We have such a diverse group of customers, it's sort of hard to identify which would be the biggest. We've had a job that was in excess of $100,000, but, annual sales this year, we had our greatest year ever in terms of overall revenue, and actually made a little money. So, we're about a $9 million company, and have been in that range for about the last 10 years, so.
Well, what's the biggest change since your grandparents ran it? Is the internet changing how you do things? Is it doing things manually that now done on machines? What's the biggest, change?
Yeah, most definitely the technology has been the biggest change. There has been no end to the pace that it changes at. If you'd said to me 5, 6, 7 years ago that we could print something that you could put on a bus or a car, I would have said, you can't do that. So, go ahead.
As far as technology, I know when I was a kid, all of the presses were mechanical. And so if something would break down, my dad would go out into the press room or the bindery or wherever, and he could usually fix whatever went wrong.
Much to my dismay.
Yeah. My dad did have a way of just making things work.
Have you heard of Star Wars and the Force? He would just go like this, and it would work.
Yeah, it's true. As far as when I started in pre-press, we were still using film and cameras, and so we had at the
Big frames.
at the building on Legion Street, we had a room that had an enormous camera in it. And I spent my childhood running, we'd load whatever needed to have a picture taken of it onto the camera and flip it down, and you go into the dark room and feed the film onto a board, and then you take the picture, and then once the picture was taken, then you had to put it through the developer and everything, and we had to manually paste up things so that it would look like a book. And while I was in pre-press, then computers started to become more of a thing at that time, so that instead of having to take pictures of everything, we were able to scan things then, and we had a machine called an image setter that would image the film, so there was no more taking pictures and stuff like that. That would image the film and get developed, and now everything just goes straight to the plate, and all of that middle part is gone.
Or without.
Well, yeah, or without a plate. We do have 3 digital presses that, for lack of a better term, they're like huge copy machines. So yeah, it's changed dramatically. The pre-press portion, when I was back working there, sometimes it would take 3 weeks to get a big job ready to go on press, and now it's, or less, yeah. Yeah, so.
I just want to tell you, I can remember when we started in the 1950s, we were setting hard type, just like the Gutenberg Bible. And so that's, I mean, when you think about that, in 1950, it wasn't that different from the printing in, 1400. And then in the space of 50 years, it's all in the air.
Like Amy alluded to just a moment ago, where probably you talk about big jobs and things like that. Little jobs, big jobs, it doesn't seem to matter anymore with customers because of the technology and so forth. We're able to do things pretty quickly, and that's just become the norm in the industry, where, like you said, it took 2 weeks to even come up with a proof to show the customer. Now it's, I need a proof by this afternoon. Okay. Can I get it printed tomorrow morning? Okay. And I need it that afternoon so I can ship it out to, wherever. Okay.
By the way, your signs are now done.
We hope you like what they say on them. So.
I have a question. Do you still give tours?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I had a tour there, our Red Hat group had a tour there a number of years ago, and I enjoyed that so much. And I just wondered if you still gave tours.
Yeah, we just did a Red Hat tour not too long ago. We certainly can do that again.
In the second grade, every year.
Oh, we do. Yeah,
We're very closely with the schools, so.
the little kids come through, and they're not so enamored by the printing press. They do like the cutter because it's a big giant guillotine cutter, and it can cut large amounts of paper at one time. The other thing they like is the scrap paper we throw in the waste bins or the recycle bins. They like the shiny floor. At one tour, their favorite thing was the snowblower. But they do, or they like it when I stick my finger in through the ink.
Or when you shrink wrap their shoes.
Oh, I shrink wrap their shoes as well. But we didn't do that with the last Red Hat tour. We didn't shrink any of their things.
He also took that tour though, when he said to me, he said to all the ladies, I don't want you running around. I want you to keep your hands by your side, and if I'm talking, I don't want you to talk.
You should mention John is sort of the comic relief at work.
Do you still do a lot of work for the UW, for instance?
We do, we work with the band quite a bit. That was one of John's passions. And so we stay connected with them, as I would imagine, as long as Mike LaCrone's still in charge there, we will continue to do that, probably even beyond that. We, as I mentioned, we work with the Verona schools quite a little bit. We're very present in our community, and I think we do a good job of taking care of our neighbors. Again, starting to turn into an advertisement here, but yeah.
I just wanted to say that Park Printing has been so good to me because of being with friends of the library. It was Women March that started the Friends of the Library in 1980 something, was it? And they're the ones that started the Friends, and Jean and Debbie have been so involved. So in 1987, when we were trying to put an addition on to the old library, it was Park Printing that spearheaded this whole effort. And we had to fundraise the $50,000 to furnish the library, otherwise the city wasn't going to give us any money. So we agreed, and Park Printing was the backbone of this, and I was in charge of the Friends and on the board, and so that was my office out at the Park Printing. And it was Debbie that taught me how to run a computer, because I had to write the newsletter. Yes. And I remember the first time I worked on it, I typed up this whole page, and I called Debbie over and I said, now what do I do? And she said, well, you save it. I said, save it? What does that mean? She said, well, I'll show you. You push this button, all my work just disappeared. And I said, Debbie, I just spent an hour on that. She said, don't worry, Ruth, I'll push this button and you'll see it comes back. That was impressive to me. And so they just did so many things. They opened up the Park Printing office on Legion Street when we had a fundraiser. I had this idea that we could call the whole Verona phone book at the time and ask for pledges, because we needed another $8,000 to put us over the $50,000. So they said, oh, no problem. We'll just have the telephone company come in. And sure enough, I called them. They said, no problem, we'll come out and put extra phone lines outside on the pole. And we set up banks of phones all the way through the whole Park Printing, and including all of their phones. And that night we raised the $8,000 by calling everybody. Some of the people got called twice, but that was okay too. And then getting back to the computer, I was thinking of going back to school. And two things. I told Debbie when I was there at Park Printing one day, because we had now built the library and I was looking for something to do, and I told Debbie, and she said, just a minute. And so she left. And she came back with about 6 or 8 people from Park Printing that I knew from ingratiating myself into the place. And she said, Ruth has an announcement. And I said, what's that? She said, tell us. And I said, well, I'm going back to school. So she said, I brought all these people to hear you say that, So you have to go back to school and you will not fit, you have to finish. So that was one of the most supportive things in my pursuit of my doctorate. And then the other thing was, I didn't know how to do the computer, and John said, Amy's dad said, well, I know there's a place in town that you can buy the computer. So he bought the computer for me, or arranged it, and it was a $4,000 project to get a computer and a printer, if you can imagine. And the first time I worked on the computer, one of the first times, my stuff disappeared. And I didn't have Debbie there saying, push this button. So I was really concerned. I just lost everything. So I called John, and John and Jean were in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. But somebody answered the phone. They said, oh, just call John out there to find out how to retrieve your stuff. And I said, oh, I can't do that. Oh, no, he will think it's funny. So I called John in Jackson Hole. I said, what do I do? And he said, well, I can walk you through it. So he did. And I got my work back. So I just really have a warm place in the heart, and I've always told Debbie that I'd like to join their family because we don't have much family down here. And every Sunday, they always had a family gathering and played games. And I said, oh, I'd love to be a part of their family. But I kind of feel I am part of the family because they've been so nice. So thank you for your time.
Oh, question. I wanted to know if they were still doing as much pre-printing as you used to do for, I always used to see everything printing donated by you, you know, on programs for various things, so. And I'm very thankful for that.
We don't advertise it as much. Yeah, we
try to keep that secret.
we continue to be benevolent. We're not out there with it a lot. You know, I say to people, the reward is the result. And when we see things that we've helped with have success, that's all we need.
I want to add the appreciation that I know of from Verona Area Community Theater. All those programs, all these years. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And that's the only thing now that I know of.
The band and the food pantry and the library and community theater and the schools and JDRF and, yeah.
Anything else?
Thanks so much, guys.